of Higher Education, Dan Greenstein. Dan comes to us from the Gates Foundation, where he led the post-secondary success strategy. Prior to that, he was, let me get his title straight, he was Vice Provost for Academic Planning and Programs for the University of California system. He has local ties. He has both a bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, and he has a doctorate of philosophy from Oxford. He came to Pennsylvania understanding what we're facing, and he came anyway. And his goal is to lead the effort to put the state system on a sustainable path, which is a major challenge. I'm impressed by his vision, his work ethic. He's taking his second set of trips around the entire Commonwealth, visiting all the campuses to have these kinds of conversations. And I really personally would like to thank him for taking on this challenge in Pennsylvania, because we got a lot of work. So please welcome Dan Greenstein.
It's great to be back in Westchester. I'm going to start with a short video. It's 4 minutes long, and then I'll be back. So I've shown that video a bunch of times to groups like this, and I've learned, and I'm not doing a show of hands, just saying, but I've learned there are 3 types of people. There are those people who look at that video and they just want to crawl back in bed and put the covers over their head. Stay there for a very long time. And some of us do that. And then there are some of us who are like, wow, cool, let's go jump off that cliff. And then there are some of us who view that with a mixture of exhilaration and just extreme fear. So, but does anyone watch that and not think about, oh my goodness, what does that mean for us, for University of Westchester? Super cool. But here's the thing. I believe that we are poised to spring into that world. It's actually not even that. It's not our future. It's our present. And I believe that because I've spent, since I've been here, it's been about 7 months just talking to everybody and meeting in groups like this. And I had the opportunity, obviously, to visit all of our universities in the fall. And I'm doing that again now. But conversations with students and faculty and staff and administrators and employers and community leaders and elected officials, just talking to everybody about us. And I've learned a lot, and a couple of things. So, we provide the kind of engaging experience that you see at the best independent college, but we do it comprehensively as well as at Westchester. We do it at a public university. We can be responsive to changing societal demand. You see it in our STEM programs, our health programs, our business programs, so many of our other programs. We came up in a meeting with faculty and staff, we layer into everything we do really foundational competencies, the kind of competencies that employers are constantly telling us they need, the kind of competencies which are clearly required in that world that we just saw depicted in that video. Critical thinking, analytical and communication skills, and ability to continue to learn and relearn across a lifetime. And despite a decade's worth of deep cumulative budget cuts and some negative and sometimes very hostile publicity and often a very divisive culture, we maintain collectively a desire to help and to create a better future in the interests of our students and the communities that we serve. And that's a lot to say grace over. It is inspiring, frankly, to me personally, and I hope it's something that everybody in this room is proud of, ought to be proud of. And it positions us to be responsive to take advantage of, and respond to the changes and the needs of our students depicted in that video, the world of work, technology, the changes in the nature of knowledge, positions as well to do others. And I have also encountered a sobering sense of realism, frankly, which I think is good. We're aware of the significant challenges. And you've seen this. Decline in public funding, the blue lines on the bottom, from about 1993. 1993. State funding declines, and the result, as you know, is that tuition goes up, and that puts downward pressure on our enrollments, 18% overall across the system since 2010. There's our universities broken down by, we have differential impact on the university. Westchester has done very well. And enrollments, with particular impact on our target population, from residents, Pennsylvania residents from families earning $110,000, leaving us at a greater rate than the overall decline. This picture looks different from Westchester. It looks different for all the universities. But overall, suggesting that in most cases, this might be an exception, we're probably reaching the limits of what we can do with tuition increases on a large portion of the students who are coming. And enrollments are hard to get, given that our core population are high school leavers, and this graph shows the proportion of high school leavers, the size of the high school leaving population over time. We're about here, about to hit bottom. It's not particularly that we fall over a cliff. It's a demographic cliff. It's just due to the fact that people stop having babies at the same rate. But it's going to be challenging for us going forward. And of course, it's hard anyway in a market which is overcrowded. There's more higher education seats than there are high school leavers to fill them even now, so that situation gets more challenging. And there's growth in the adult student market. There's a huge potential there, particularly in non-degree, reskilling, upskilling, short course certificate. But that's a tiny part of the education that we offer. It's not, at least not yet, it's not a core competency of our institutions. And these challenges, they show up in our finances. Don't pay too much attention to the red, yellow, and green. These are indices that we maintain. It's like, Moody's and Moody's rates companies. Are they AAA rated? Are they AA? So the way they do those ratings is they collect lots of indicators, lots of measures on various aspects of financial strength, and then they look at all those measures and then they say, so, they come up with the subjective part is, okay, what's the summary index? So we do that for the universities. The measures have to do with enrollment, leading indicators, operational efficiency, and enrollment market share, operational efficiency, and then some financial and so the important thing to look at is the 2019, Westchester's up here, the 2019 results, hard to see, are the solid bars, and the 2015 results are the dotted bars, with the exception of 3 institutions, Westchester, Slippery Rock, and East Stroudsburg. The magnitude of the gap at each of our universities, the decline in financial health, which is really just a reflection of all those things I talked about before. Declining state funding, increased tuition, declining enrollment show up, unsurprisingly, in our financial health. And I just noticed my hair is not on fire. Nobody's hair should be on fire here either. But this is our reality. And the reason I bring it up is because as a corporate entity, we're a single corporate entity, right? We're a single system, a single organizational structure. So in fact, we have one bank. Yes, Westchester has a bank account. But in effect, all of the bank accounts are children of the master, right? And so what that means is that weakness that is anywhere across the system, and you saw a lot of weakness, right, or increasing weakness. Weakness that exists across the system tug everywhere across the system. It's just a virtue of our structure, right? And so as we were thinking last term, in a team that had been assembled with the cross-functional representation of faculty, staff, and trustees, board members, and actually President Ferrantino was on it. We asked the question, we were thinking about what kind of system we needed to become in reflection both of these challenges that we're facing, but also this opportunity of moving into this new world. What kind of system will we become? And we asked ourselves the normal, reasonable question, which is, well, okay, where are we now? And what happens if we don't do anything? Because doing nothing is easier. Right? And so we projected out our cost lines, which are shown in red, and our revenue lines based on the last several years. And said, if we don't do anything, what happens? When do we run out of money? So now on money. So across the system, we have about $790 million in reserves, unrestricted reserves. And that's about 4.5 months worth of operating. So if all the no receipts were coming in, we could continue to operate. And you think, well, that's a lot, right? 4.5 months, that's a lot. And then you think, well, can anybody imagine a time where the state government took maybe 4, 5, or 6 months? Oh crap, 4.5 months doesn't seem like such a long time, right? So it's okay. I mean, again, my hair's not on fire, 6 months would be better. Anyway, so we have that much in reserve. And then if we don't do anything to change the cost and revenue across the system, how long before we run out of money to exhaust those reserves? And the answer is here. Here's the cumulative effect of that gap line. It's about 7 to 10 years, right? We run out of money in 7 to 10 years. Which, if you're in private industry, you don't even start thinking about it for another 5 or 6 years. But, this is how long does it take to start a new program in Westchester from we start to finish? So this is a challenge. And it's important to, again, hair's not on fire. This is not like, it's a situation. We're in it. We're going to get through it. I have every confidence in it. It's not a pretty picture. It's not new. It isn't news. And it didn't just happen overnight. This has been cumulative. You have to work again. So here we are. And it is going to require all of us working together closely for years to address our future is very much a collective. But we'll nail it. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm profoundly optimistic, not just because personally I'm optimistic, because I've spent a lot of time with us and learning about us and meeting so many people, and we have what it takes to address these issues. And historically, our universities, they've been around a long time. The youngest is 121 or 122 years, the oldest 181 or 182 years. And in that course of history, we've undergone tremendous evolution. We will do that again. And the historical reference and the, the reference to the faculty and staff that we have is not enough. Put it another way, what choice do we have? Right? What choice? The cost of our not tapping into our best selves and addressing the challenges that we're facing head on is just unacceptably high. Right? It is measured in the shattered hopes and dreams of real people, students who would or could be here. The devastation of the whole communities that we serve and the faltering steps of our state's economy. So what? This is a kind of a mission. So where to, and I want to talk about, okay, so where are we going? And I want to spend some time, outlining the vision that I outlined for the board based on a lot of the conversations we were having and the work of the team, some of which I've mentioned. And it's a vision that's really grounded in everything I've heard. So I want to reflect a little bit about what I've heard. I have heard employees demanding, faculty and staff, demanding that we stop competing with each other on everything we do. We stop doing things redundantly 14 times a day. I've heard, a kind of a drumbeat, I'm quoting in snippets, a drumbeat of folks saying, urging us to emerge from our silos, remove bureaucratic processes, step out of our oppositional cultures, tear down barriers to greater collaboration, unlock tremendous talent and innovation from our faculty and staff. Folks saying that only by transforming our universities and our system, and I know Westchester is well on this path, can we continue our historic history. Only by changing fundamentally how we do everything we do can we remain the same, which I mean, can we continue to best serve the needs of our students and the common. So I wanted to spend a moment talking about what that vision is, what it looks like. We talk about it in terms of sharing system. And before I go into it too much length, I want to just acknowledge that we're in this very uncomfortable part of the transformational journey, which is going to take several. We're in this part where we have this vision. We don't have a whole lot of detail about how we're going to get there and what's going to mean for me. And that's uncomfortable. That detail will come into focus increasingly from October, November, but it just isn't right now. It's as uncomfortable for me as it will be for you. But we can spend some time imagining what that future might be. So we speak about it in terms of a sharing system. And a sharing system places at its center our students. They're centered there, there's our students and their successes at the center of everything we do, and we transform our work around them in three fundamental areas. So one is instructional delivery and student support. Another is university operations. And the third has to do with our governance and our organizational culture. We may actually have to think about how we do innovation. We can talk about that later. But let me start with instructional delivery. In a sharing system, our universities leverage their tremendous operating scale, utilize the talent, 12,000 faculty, something like that. 12,000 staff, something like 5,000 faculty. As if that was a single entity in some regard, in order to expand opportunities. So let's imagine what that looks like. And I want to be clear here, this isn't about socializing, creating a single institution. This is about creating an infrastructure that every university builds its own future on. So imagine that world, where a student on any campus has access to academic programs that other campuses. So just think of some of the opportunities. How about ensuring that all students have the courses they need when they need them in order to graduate in a timely way? So I ran into a student at one of our universities. It's the last time I met with students at every university visit. And we were talking about some of the challenges that they face, and she begins to, frankly, cry in the room, which is a pretty courageous thing to do in front of the chancellor and other students, to talk about the fact that she cannot get the anthropology course that she needs to complete her degree in a timely fashion. And I'm like, this is a university of 98,000 students, 5,500 students, 5,500 faculty. This student cannot get the course she needs to graduate on time, should be in that. It's wrong. We're imposing burden of debt. I met another student who wanted to minor in Spanish at an institution which couldn't support that. 5,500 faculty. We can't minor. That student cannot minor in Spanish. It doesn't make sense. But go into another use case. How about offering instruction in subjects which require a greater breadth of expertise that universities can afford on their own to operate? Languages. How many languages are available at Westchester? I know it's a lot. course it's competitive. And I don't know what they are, maybe AI, data, science. In other areas, sciences, in Celtic poetry. Seriously. With a faculty of several hundred, let's just review our articles. It's hard. Impossible. Harvard is talking about paring back no longer be excellent academics. And they've got $36 billion in the bank. That's $1 billion with a B. Right? But with 5,500 faculty, thinking differently about how we combine expertise, there's almost nothing we can't do. How about in terms of, think about professional areas of study. Fields where, the communities that we're serving tend to be regional. In nursing and business, they don't require single aspects. It's not like I just need social work, geriatric social work, by which I don't mean old social workers. Another institution will show their names, right? But our program approval methodology forces us to demonstrate that we're not competing with each other, so to narrow down the disciplines. And I'm like, really? Are you telling me that in service to your community, you're going to offer a single subdiscipline in a major area, which is a high need? It doesn't make any sense. I get it in terms of our systemness and how we want to do it. But in terms of perverse outcomes, if you think about putting students first and communities first, it's just insanity. Imagine the opportunity to combine across the system to be able to deliver that kind of content and instruction into any region where it was through the university to access. Think about student supports, where, again, collective action, study abroad. How many programs are at Westchester? A bunch, right? I'm going to ask you how many countries are. Actually, I get more animated about career services. So our students have the nasty habit of graduating and going anywhere in the world. It's a global economy. And the buggers tend to work in any industry. So naturally enough, right, our career services, 14 times over, have to equip themselves to advise and support students so they can go anywhere in the world in any industry at any level. That doesn't make any sense. But again, 12,000 employees, 5,000. Imagine what one could accomplish in the world of career services. So many others. So let's look quickly at university operations. I don't want to spend too much time here, but in a sharing system, basically, we just overcome that emotional attachment to doing everything 14 months. It doesn't, it is. I'm going to pick on accounts payable. Is anyone here from accounts payable? Don't put it in. It's just there are economies of scale that we're just going to have to identify. We just have to. In a sharing system, we just have to monetize our operations. Imagine a world where, as a matter of principle, every dollar is spent as a matter of principle on the thing that is most important, which is our students and our students' success. Right? So, in a sharing system, we just modernize our operations. Now, I want to spend more time, we go to the third area, organizational culture and governance. And the reason I want to spend more time here is that I'm increasingly convinced that all the other stuff is super hard, but technocratic in nature, we'll figure that stuff out. That unless we get at the organizational culture, governance stuff, it's just none of it's going to work. I'll give some examples as to why. So in a sharing system, we have to double down on transparency. Imagine a world where faculty and staff are routinely discussing and having input into the most important decisions that we make at the university and the system levels. About the goals that we're setting for ourselves, strategies that we're using to accomplish those goals, and how we're allocating dollars against them. And there's that same kind of transparent conversation about our progress moving forward. How do we do? Where do we need coursework? The sharing system has to be more than just transparent kind of sharing in the decision-making process of being a consultant. It has to invest in its faculty and staff. It has to seek to strengthen its culture. Why? Because the sharing system knows that institutions are not great places to work because they're high-performing and successful. Institutions are high-performing and successful because they are great places to work. And I had evidence of that. There's a lot of evidence of that in the research literature. But I had evidence of that in the previous meeting with a group of faculty and staff, which were telling me that the sort of recent sort of strengths that Westchester has shown have been directly related to the work on the culture of the place. So it's a local lived experience. So imagine a world where every employee is aligned around a common purpose, adheres to and advances a shared set of values, and is encouraged and rewarded for behaviors that are associated with those values. Behaviors that are concrete, they're measurable, they're observable, you can hold people accountable for abstract concept. I'm going to give you an example. If I were emperor and not chancellor, and there's a difference, I would have a value show respect. That would be one of my values. And as a behavior that was associated with show respect, I would choose assume good intent. What does that mean? It means that when I engage in a conversation, even a difficult conversation over a topic where I strenuously disagree with my colleague, I will assume that they are coming from a place of good intent. That doesn't mean they don't have development opportunities in their roles. It doesn't mean they're the best fit for the job. It just means that I will assume that they are doing their best, and that they are doing their best with the same values that I share in the mission of the place. And why is that important? It's important because I have sat in conversations where the opening premise seems to be, you're too stupid to live. Seriously. Or you're malicious, and you're trying to manipulate. And this isn't just in, interactions between the office of the chancellor from the evil lands of Mordor and the university. I've witnessed this between colleagues in a university, within a certain employee category, in fact, between categories. I've seen it, councils of church, I've seen it all over, right? So, in a world where there's, and organizations often have values, they put them on placards and websites. I didn't work with Westchester. They very rarely take the next steps, and I'm not being critical, this is true generous. They very rarely take the next step and translate those values into behaviors and then invest in their employees in order to develop and support those behaviors. So imagine a world where that's happening, where every employee not just understands the values and has the support in developing the behaviors that are associated with them, where every employee understands their work and the work of their unit and how it contributes in tangible ways to the mission of the institution, to the concrete goals of the institution, probably measured in student success. Or one in which every employee has a great manager who sets clear expectations, gives and seeks feedback, invests in the employee's success along well-defined career paths. Imagine a world where every employee feels safe speaking up and taking risks, innovating in the interest of our students and our university's success. Or go to managers. How many managers in the world? It's no shame to be a manager. Imagine a world, and I know it happens here at Westchester, so imagine this at other universities also being like Westchester, in which every manager is supported and rewarded for being an effective manager. Building high-performing teams, creating safe places to have open and honest conversations, inviting dissenting and diverse opinions, mentoring staff, being exalted and transparent in this. Imagine that. And there's more to this sharing system. That was 3 parts of the playbook, putting in place the infrastructure and policy environment that enables us to share, thinking very differently and very hard about our governance and our organizational culture. Thinking differently about how we do university operations. There's other things. We have to retool the Chancellor's office. We have to strengthen our shared governance, our faculty shared governance in particular. We have to isolate decision makers from the tremendous political pressures that they're often under so they can take difficult decisions. One of the reasons we've gotten to where we've gotten. We have to improve our communications and advocacy work. We have plans for all that. But we can take that up in conversation. Let me spend a moment on next steps, and then I'll close a little bit after Q&A. So when I think of our next steps, I think of 2 things that kind of exist in 2 categories. The first is we need some basic infrastructure in place. is we don't actually have the basic budgeting and accountability structures that we need to take this journey. We have to put those in place, and we're making some pretty good progress on it. And there's probably also some quick wins in procurement, maybe a handful of other areas where we can just take some money out of our costs. So there's a category of stuff called quick wins, and you'll begin to see some, already some significant, actually the tuition policy that was done last April was part of a broader change in the accountability structure where you're providing a much higher degree of autonomy to individual universities to set their own paths, and in this case to set their own tuition policy for a much higher degree of accountability, so that accountability structure is pretty in place. And there's a lot of drains and toilets work, and people in this room are helping do it, so don't take that in a bad way, that needs to be done to actually enable that to happen. We have to do budgeting in the same way. We have to measure and count things in the same way. You have no idea the tremendous lift it will take to get there, but we're doing it. Those are quick wins. They're not sexy, to be perfectly honest. Right? And then over the longer term, but they're super important. Without them, we're going nowhere. In the longer, the other stuff, the sort of, is really all being done through these teams that are being assembled, very much like the teams that we've used in the past as part of system redesign with faculty and staff and administration. So there's a bunch. The ones in solid colors have been established or are being established. Looking at developmental education, can we do better with onboarding on-campus for students? What's it mean to do this academic program stuff? That sharing stuff sounds really hard. So the team looking at that. Online, can we use online? We leverage online a different way in the interest of the system, in the interest of the universities. This budget and these budget investment teams are doing some of the heavy lifting on those early wins, the accountability structures, how do we move money around, how do we hold people accountable for the money they're moving around, how do we actually align them? This is super TBD, so don't really read anything into these words except Dan had to put some words in there, and so he put these words in there that meant something to him. But we've invited a group of student success and retention leaders across the universities to say, okay, where are the things that we could think differently and work together collaboratively in the interest of a sharing system to move the needle with student success and retention, that is so important to our enrollment. So whether advising, counseling, and workforce aligned programming comes up, I don't know, but we would expect to see some positive improvement. We are hiring a consultant probably in the next couple of weeks, to help us, of all the shared services we could do, which are we going to do, and that would put a team around their work as well. And then we've given so we've hired a project manager, we've given some advisory structure for the project. So the longer term design implementation, what does this mean for me, will come out of the work of those teams. So let me summarize. So this system redesign is just, so I know too, this is not a modest adjustment to our, we are not going to tweak ourselves out of the financial situation. We're not going to. And we're not going to tweak our way into the future that the president is in that video. We're talking about fundamentally rethinking what we do. It's our mission, it's our collective destiny. And like I said, I have no doubt that we'll succeed. I'm going to share two. So one of them is that the challenges that we're facing, both in terms of financial, demographic, political, and the challenges of moving forward to work effectively with students and communities in the future, as depicted in that video, they are not unique to Westchester or Pennsylvania. They're just not. This is higher education. Now, these challenges are particularly acute in Pennsylvania because we're ahead of the demographic trend, and because the level of state funding is so low, a variety of local factors, right? But this is where public higher education is going. We are 5 years ahead. This wave is going to sweep across the northern states, down the eastern seaboard, and it's going to go bounce back to the west, and it will leave maybe 2 states untouched, Texas and Utah. Everybody else, this is their future. And so as a consequence, a lot of people are watching Pennsylvania, not to push the pressure on her. Folks are watching. Win, lose, or draw, lessons are going to be learned here, which will be fed back into this district. Because we're just ahead of the curve. We didn't choose these times have chosen us. They just did. overwhelming, but at the same time, it's a blessing. It's a gift. Very few people will be able to say, 10 or 15 years from now, I had an opportunity to reimagine the whole higher education for the 21st century. That time found us. And that's a gift. And I'm not going to go, I said this to I'm not going into my St. Crispin's Day speech, but I will debate gentlemen of England now. That's a blessing. And the second thing is, I'm a historian professionally. Started out life as a member of the history faculty. Can't say I was born as a member of the history faculty. It's not. Can't get that way either. You know, when I studied transformational movements in my time, transformational movements consist of people, ideas, and time. So, we are the people. We definitely have the ideas. And right now, now's the time. So thank you. Q&A. No subject is off the table.
So, just based on what you said, Simon Ruppy from Women's and Gender Studies. Based on what we heard here, I kind of see two possibilities of the direction you want to take us. One would be more online education, and two would be moving departments, programs around different universities. So there's kind of two parts to this. One, the other advantage to easy access to the internet is I can quickly pull up articles that tell us that an online education is actually increasingly demonstrating to be an inferior education. And so I'm wondering, do we really want to make these changes? We've got public education. And the other is, do we have any data, any polling that suggests that students would, like say if we got rid of physics here and moved it to Bloomberg, that students would transfer from Westchester to Bloomberg to do their physics education, or would they just go to Temple?
What's your name again?
Simon.
Simon. Can I use this as an opportunity to make a cultural point?
Mm-hmm.
If I do that, will you promise not to take it personal?
Well, it depends, right?
So, assume good intent. So, you weren't aware of what you said, probably. So you said, if you do these things, it will gut. You said something about gutting higher education, which assumed that.
I said, would it?
So that was a good example of assuming good intent. It was asking the question, that's what I wanted to call it. It was asking the question, rather than saying, you want to gut higher education. Now, all of us have been in rooms where, not you, but others would have gone in the other direction. So I wanted to acknowledge that and make that cultural point and say thank you. So, two things. One of them is online education. So actually, one of them I'm going to go to the meta point. I don't have that. These design teams are put in place because no one single person can have that view. I have a mission. The mission is to do two things: address our financial challenges, position us for the future, in the interest of continuing our historic mission, which is to serve our students and the communities that we reflect. That's mine. My leadership style and this approach is to set that broader vision and then go to the people who can answer the questions that you've just asked. And they're all good questions. Let me go to online education. I spent a lot of time as an investor in online education, and there's a longer conversation we probably want to have. The literature shows that that if you understand online education in terms of different specific use cases, it has very different outcomes. So fully online education for students directly out of high school that are academically at risk, bad outcomes. Face-to-face education for adults who are coming back to college to earn their degree, bad outcomes, right? Online is much better. So you have, and there's a handful of other different goals in the middle. So you really have to think about who you're serving and what your opportunities are, and then evaluate online education. And there's a big research literature which demonstrates where it works and where it's less good. So we can go into that. But that's for us to determine, and that's for individual universities to determine, what kind of students they want to teach, what are the outcomes they're trying to get to, and then what are the modalities they do. So some of the work of those teams. In terms of moving faculty, moving programs around, again, this cannot be done top down, right? This is going to have to bubble up, and I would not. I'm not sure what you meant by moving programs around. I can tell you for a fact that there are universities in our midst which are 3 retirements away from not teaching history. It just is. And those retirements probably will be close. So I'm talking about, for that, in that particular instance, we're talking about expanding choice. I can tell you for a fact, data scientists that I know at another of our universities are absolutely livid that the system cannot do a degree in data science to compete effectively, and yet there's enough data scientists in our midst to be able to make that happen, but we're not structured in that way. And the criminal justice chairs in our midst are thinking very creatively, I'm told, about how to bring their offerings together so that any one of them can offer a wider range of. So I don't think that's moving departments around so much as leveraging our capability in different ways so we can meet our mission needs.
But what I'm asking is, because as kind of hearing this indicated,
Yeah.
it felt almost like the Battle of Winterfell was covered in 2 minutes right there at the end, and so I'm kind of just asking for information.
Yeah.
It sounded like there was this idea that, hey, we got these different programs that are doing all this work. What if we combine them at one school? So let's say we take all the history faculty from here and move them over to Bloomsburg.
Yeah.
And history faculty from another part move to Bloomsburg and say to all the students who want to go to the state system, you want to study history, go to Bloomsburg.
So,
But my question though is, have you done any polling, any research that would tell us whether our students, the students in this system, would be willing to give up going to Westchester, near Philly, near DC, near New York City, and stay a history major, or would they just switch to become a poli-sci major?
and I think that all of these design teams, just because I'm an analytical person and because the board will accept nothing less, as we begin to see these opportunities emerge, you would require that kind of analytics to be put underneath them so that the business case can be made with respect of long-term implications. So those are all great questions. And again, we're in this uncomfortable moment where these questions aren't being answered, and I'm just telling you, I will give you my answers. If someone asked me, wouldn't this be easier if the chancellor just made all these decisions? And the answer is it would be easier and it would be a lot more efficient, but it wouldn't work. But I'm happy to do it. Hands up. Okay. No, that's all these things that, and just to acknowledge the discomfort. Yeah. And transparency is critical in this.
So, what is the grand vision of where the system should go? I mean, there are various models, the University of California system, the Virginia State system, even SUNY. And then, where does Westchester fit into this? Because as long as I've been here, I've felt that we've had to suffer at the expense of supporting the other schools,
Yeah.
in terms of financially, in terms of services.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer that question. Before I answer the question, we have these surveys. They're called Ready, Willing, Able. 6 questions under each heading. They identify for any group the readiness to undertake change, the willingness to undertake change, and the ability to undertake change. And they're super important for folks involved in a change leadership, change management type exercise to sort of gauge, how we talk about meeting students where they are. So this is about meeting our faculty and staff and students and alumni, trustees where they are. And so if we're going to pass those surveys out, it'll just take a minute or two to fill out. If you feel comfortable, they're purely anonymous. We'll make all the results available. But it helps us gauge what we need to do in order to move. So as they're passed out, to your questions, the grand vision, and where does Westchester fit? So I think the grand vision for the institution is really, as far as you've heard, it is that we have to evolve in these ways in order to continue to move forward in a financially sustaining, but also productive way, productive measure in terms of our ability to serve our students in our state. The detailed design is not yet there. It will become available. I promise to come back to the General Assembly with a much more clearly articulated strategy with real numbers in it. So this will begin to come together in higher relief towards the end of this calendar year. Where does Westchester fit is a much more, in some ways, interesting, difficult, nuanced question. And it's going to have to come out of this new environment where our presidents are working in a very different way. Our leadership is working in a very different way. And let me give you a couple of examples as to why. So right now what happens is that universities have pretty much established their own direction and they go off and they do what they do. All good when times are good and everybody's doing okay. But in this environment where we do have a number of very serious experimental institutions fighting on the rest, it's no longer, it's not working. So we have to get ourselves into a place where our leadership, our university leadership, are not just responsible for their universities, they're also responsible to one another for how other universities are doing in key areas. And so some of that accountability work I was talking about before, one outcome of that is that university leadership will share their strategies and budgets and plans with one another. And it's going to have to foster these difficult conversations, which may run something like this. Well, University X, by having three buildings mothballed, you're costing $2.5 million a year that is drawing on scarce resources which could otherwise be distributed. I'm not comfortable with that. Or, you know, President, your upper division student-faculty ratio is in high single digits, and mine is in the high teens, which means that your costs are much higher than the average, and they're certainly higher than mine, which means you're right? These are really difficult conversations. So here's another one. You know, if you do that master's in your field, it's going to have negative impacts. Here's the analytics on me. Those kinds of conversations, so when we're talking about a higher degree of responsibility for universities to sort of shape their own future, a higher degree of accountability, that accountability to the board, okay, but it's really the accountability to other universities. And we're going to, and out of that conversation, Westchester feeds into that conversation. Here's where we're going. University leadership discusses this as a whole. Out of that conversation emerges better understanding of what the pieces are and critically how they fit. Begin to see that happen over the next actually 4 months. I was over there and there. Now,
Giovanni from studying biology. I was a little concerned about the graph you put up with the revenue stream versus the expenses, and the further we got, the more that expanded. So my question is, my head's not on fire. My question is, where do you see the revenue stream coming from? One area could be the legislature, but I don't know if you have any say in, you know, fighting for the state system and say, look, Governor Wolf, you know, you built your platform on education and the importance of revenue for education. We're higher education, a different level. You know, our income, the amount of money that's going to us goes down. So, you know, is that able to be increased? The other one is, and you've already mentioned that, you know, tuition increase is not on the board. So my question is, if tuition increase isn't on the board and the revenue stream from the state is going down, where do you see the revenue stream coming from in the future?
so let me take the second question first and the first question second. So please don't ever say I showed the slide to you, because I built a brand about really data-driven analytically, right? Here's a slide with no numbers. Give me a pass on this one, right? But it's meant to be competitive. So, and the title would be The Next Few Years Suck. That's a technical term. If nobody gets a salary increase across the entire university next year, we're $31 million in debt. 2019. And because our cost drivers are such, you just see escalating on healthcare, whatever it uses to. So if anybody gets a salary increase next year, the situation just gets better. Our savings drivers, to your point, they're there. The things you can throw against that are slow moving, right? I know we're talking about a phased retirement for faculty, but it's a phased retirement, so you don't see anything immediately money. You see money eventually, but it depends on uptake and it takes time. Who knows? Enrollment management, which includes both new students and retention. So Westchester, obviously, but also our other universities started taking enrollment management pretty seriously a few years ago for obvious reasons. It's a hockey stick effect. It takes time to deliver results, but those results will begin, you know, not massive, but eventually slow and then So you'll see some growth through enrollment, I mean, just some benefit from that effort. Shared services, right, shared services, there'll be savings, but they take a while to accrue. So the things that you can throw against that, right, you hope over 4 or 5 years you get back to solid ground. The challenge is when you get back to solid ground, you don't want to just repeat the cycle. So this transformation to equip ourselves to do well in that new world is going to also have to happen. So that's thing one. Your question about appropriation. So there is a grand bargain that's emerging in my conversation in the General Assembly and in the Capitol building generally. I learned the other day that every day the session is in session, I'm in the building, which I'm being recorded, so I'm not going to tell you what I think about that. But it's super important. It is super important. The level of relationship building, the opportunity to make the case. What I'm hearing, both on the R's and the D's, and in both capitals, with different flavors, is that there is a belief in public higher education, and I think people recognize and people make the case, the door is open for us to make the case, that public higher education is essential to the future of the Commonwealth with respect to its economy, the social health, civic health of the state. That's there to do. We need to do it crisply and concretely, if you will. But I think there's also a sense in which we have not been responsive to the concerns of General Assembly. And those concerns they're the same. They're all the same. There are 4. Accountability and transparency in budget. You come to us every year and you say, we need this much money. Why? Well, that's what it would cost you if we do this year, next year. It costs to carry budget, right? It's like, what do I get for the money? We haven't answered that question. So, and we can't answer that question until our budgeting process is in the kind of accountability stuff we talked about. So we'll be there next year. We keep giving you incremental funding and you're raising tuition. Stop. Right? You have this small schools problem. Deal with it. Get your costs in line with your revenues. Right? So the grand bargain that is materializing is, okay, we're going to do those things. And I said this in both the Senate and the House Appropriation Committee hearings, that we're going to do those things. We're going to make tractable progress in all of those 4 areas this year, and then we're going to come back to the General Assembly and we're going to have a conversation about 2 things. The regulatory environment, which costs us money, and public investment in higher education. One time and ongoing. Because the infrastructure we're talking about is not free, right? And it's essential. And there's an openness to this conversation on both sides. Last thought, I meet with the governor every month, and yesterday was the meeting. And he's super interesting because he's an academic, and I'm an academic, so you can imagine the meetings. Get about 5 minutes on real business. But he was super helpful because, he's also very supportive of this, was actually helping, how do you frame, what does that look like? What does that package look like? You need a strategic plan with real outcomes, and then you have to and so it's not just a vision, you've got dollars and cents, and I don't mean that in terms of dollars and cents, impact for the state, and beginning to get at the vision for the universities within the system, which is, and demonstrating that in this reimagination of public higher education for the good of the state with these outcomes. So what's interesting to me, and I've only had these conversations bilaterally, is that when you have them, Republicans in the House, Democrats in the House, Republicans in the Senate, Democrats in the Senate, the governor and the governor's people, it's all the same conversation, which is really good. Words are different. So I'm pretty optimistic. Does that mean they're going to be there at the other end? I don't know, but.
Hi, I'm Tiffany. I'm a student here at Westchester. And so one of the main concerns I have as far as the redesign is concerned is the issue of sustainability. And so it's been made clear from you and from the redesign process that economic sustainability is a key issue. However, I think it's important to include the other 2 tiers of sustainability. And so those are social justice and economic prosperity, or environmental prosperity. Here at Westchester, we have included these pieces of sustainability in our strategic plan, and as a student, I'm really proud of that. And as one of the many young people of this nation, I am continually worried about the future of our planet. Campuses have the opportunity to act as community leaders in sustainability, and this is what I believe will draw in our future leaders, so students that we want to attend these universities. There are many movements that include social justice, economic, and environmental prosperity that are being led and supported by our youth. It says in the redesign that you want to ensure our students' success, so help to ensure that there will be a safe planet to live when we graduate. You want to leverage university strengths and empower our leaders to make bold decisions that place the needs of students first. So show them that you're not afraid to support the students who are leading these movements and take a stand for our future planet and its inhabitants. My question for you is, how will the redesign move beyond just shoring up what the system has been in the past and embrace a new vision for a sustainable future for its students and for Pennsylvania?
That's great. Great question. Thank you. Great comment. And I know Westchester is a leader in sustainability, and the sustainability group from Westchester University was the leading commenter on the system redesign plan that came out in December, January. Of the N number of comments, I think 2 came from the sustainability. Actually, just so you know, I don't know where some of the copy blogs shared, but it was really good. It was super important. So also a great lesson in public practice. The work of these, I mean, the design, again, I gotta go back to this point. I don't have a grand plan in my head. I just don't. This stuff is too complicated. I can create a direction, I can provide a vision, I can say, there's the kind of mountain range we're gonna go to. I kind of see it at a distance. But how we're gonna get there, by what mode of transport, by what route, what cafes we're stopping in along the way, and what we order when we go in to sit down. It just, you can't do that. I can't. Right? That's why we put in place this pretty standard. And those boxes, they're the current wave of boxes. There could be plenty of other boxes. And you can see in the future boxes emerging, which talk about it. For me, the critical thing is a bazillion things we could do. Not having to do about which we do. But I think as a leader, as I'm approached with opportunities, I want to draw a direct line to the 2 things that you said. One of them is sort of righting the ship, and the other is transforming our university so that it can continue to serve historic issues. And so evaluate all these opportunities through that lens and choose accordingly in terms of potential framework. In this way only, there are 2 things that the chancellorship and being a director at Gage share, is that investment decisions are always based on evaluation of potential for impact. In dollars and cents, or whatever impact is measured. And that discipline is something we're all going to have to adopt. We choose all the things we do. Let's understand the consequences, the implications, the costs, and the benefits, and then let's choose. So I ask for the same thing with everything. Show me the plan, show me the implications, show me the outcomes, and then let's know. The work that's going on here is absolutely fabulous. Keep it in. Okay? I know I promised here, and then I'm going to go back. Sure.
So my personal and professional mission is to move various system success, right? So I'm excited about the idea of sharing what we have and the strengths that we have and collaborating with folks across the system. I'm fairly new though to PASSHE, and so the hiccup for me is that I don't understand the strengths of the other universities.
Yeah. And I think the broader challenge there is so interesting. It's one about information sharing, practice sharing, and we're thinking in any input. We're just put up a starting point, as an early starting point for generating greater conversation. We put up a social platform, just launched it the other day. And you can use it to do a lot of things right now. It's kind of a discussion with the chancellor. I mean, but it can be discussions with, you can reach out to your peers and create groups on it, and you can do that on Facebook. We have a number of informal groups that meet together. We have a number of formal groups that meet together. How do we foster more of that best practice sharing? People ask me, what can I do now? They were asking me to sit in Spilled in the Sky, the criminal justice guy comes down and says, let me tell you what we're doing in criminal justice. And he was in touch with all of you. And a lot of that is happening, and that's kind of cool. But we need to facilitate and foster that. And critically, we need to also have mechanisms so that people aren't frustrated when they get together, have a good idea, and then they eat counters and out. So we need to provide receptacles for those good ideas as they come forward. So help us think through what that looks like. You know, I think leadership is pretty convinced, I'll certainly speak for myself, that tapping into the innovation and creativity of our faculty and staff is absolutely critical. How do we do that in a way recognizing that not everything can happen all at once, things need to be sequenced and but that level of communication and cross-transparency. Other thing I would say, people here have been in system-wide activities, tends to generate more of that visibility into what others are doing. And so how do we engage more folks without distracting them too much from their, real lives? But, how can we expose more folks to that kind of creates that purpose? And how do we expose people like me to things that happen?
Hi, Cheryl Wanko from the English department here. Thanks for coming out to speak with us today. I actually have 2 requests that might turn into questions. First of all, I'd like to follow up on our excellent student Tiffany's question about sustainability and just comment that, in your position, right, you do have the power to direct certain kinds of conversations, right? We're directing them to address the economic concerns. So I would just request that as you speak to the folks in these groups who are working from all these different directions and putting in all this hard work, that you ask them to think about the larger systems of unsustainable culture in which we operate and how we can realign our mission with that. The second request is in preparation for some APSCO meetings and for this meeting, I went to the PASSHE redesigned website and to try to get myself up to speed. And it just hasn't been updated in a while. So for example, this really useful chart and perhaps the membership of each of these groups, that isn't up there. And so I think, to go back to your former point about transparency, I think go a long way towards transparency and openness if we had more information up there.
And just to be clear, this is fresh. I think we just populated the first 2 of these teams in terms of membership. But you're absolutely right. And your point is well taken. And we need to get better at that. And I love input. We need to fill, so I get lots of emails at Chancellor at PASSHE. So can I read them? And I try to respond to as many as I can. Don't ever hesitate to send them. They're incredibly helpful and illuminating and inspiring and everything else. And so actually the reason we set up this platform was because, I felt like I shouldn't be the only one to benefit from those comments because they're so good, right? And so we build a culture where people are willing to comment in public about these issues. So we're trying to see what that looks like. But this may not be the best way to facilitate that conversation and transparency. So anything that you can think of. My team is, and my Chief Strategic Relations Officer, Cody Jones, is here listening to this conversation, is kind of responsible for this area. We're trying to think, I do a blog, and then we have this, and I've used the blog to kind of keep people posted about where system redesign is, and we're clearly going to have to separate the channels. So the blog can be about blogging, system redesign, we have some other meaningful newsletter type communications which aren't too boring and long but are informative. So any ideas that you have on this topic, what would be helpful? When stuff is up and isn't helpful, let us know. Tell us. Yeah, we can only try to be as good as the information we get. It's a really important point. Both transparency and communications has come up a bunch of times. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go there and there and there. What's the order with yourself? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Hi, I'm
Have the
Tina.
mic, that's power. Exercise.
I'm Tina Shirley-Helminiak. I'm a Shippensburg alumni, and I'm the department chair of graduate social work. And my comments will not be anonymous because we are the only grad social work department in the entire system. So,
But if you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have known.
I do appreciate you mentioning social work in your comments because we are a field that meets workforce demands, but we're not a STEM field, so we don't get a lot of the attention. So I'm hesitantly nervous about the thoughts of the sharing because at Shippensburg there is a shared MSW program with Millersville, and then Millersville also has a DSW shared with Kutztown. So there is some programs across the system that are already sharing resources, but there's always one university that gets more of the pie than the other university, depending on student numbers and local resources.
What I have seen in the 5 years that I've been here at Westchester is the missed opportunities with our Philadelphia campus as well as our Dixon Center. Because those are the places that we could be piloting the sharing of resources, but we're not doing that. So I'm really nervous about an entire system overhaul before we have even tested this out in an urban center on both in central Pennsylvania and southeast Pennsylvania. And then we have to also think about the rural parts of our state, because social work, like many disciplines, looks very different in the Philadelphia region as it does in the Shippensburg region and Bloomsburg.
So great comment. So the fact that we do some sharing is really good because we can learn lessons, good and bad. Excellent. I want to go to your Dixon Center, Philadelphia. You're absolutely right. And can I just add on that, just to really? So I think the overhead cost for the Dixon Center is $1 million off the top, or $1.3 million off the top, which for the operation of the facility for the teaching space. And of course, it's revenue generating, right? In terms of $137,000 against $1.3 million. You know, it's bad. It's a good order of magnitude. Oh crap. Okay, so actually, I have asked members of my team, Sarah Latter's here, but not here. The facility is occupied at 20%. That's the other thing. Radical transparency. This is just stupid. I mean, that's the technical term. And we're under leveraging the facility. Okay, so that's thing one. Thing two is you're absolutely right. I mean, look, I'm trying to build a brand, I'll jump off any cliff, so don't share this widely. But yeah, I would expect that the design teams, which are working on kind of collaborative activities, would pilot things before, in my experience, if things get messed up in a pilot, they're going to fail spectacularly at scale. So, yes. And again, I want to come back to the fact that it's really important that we have two real strong assets, right? We have programs that share from which we can run lessons. And then we have a number of groups, naturally, have already come together who want to do this. Right, so you've got a kind of a natural petri dish, kind of guinea pig environment, which is good, because people are going to want to have to do this at least the first time. It's probably the early stages. There's one back there. Over. I forgot that.
Hi, I'm Megan Corbin from Languages and Cultures, specifically Spanish. I had a question early on when you were discussing your plans. You said that we need to stop competing against each other. I'm wondering what you see as competition. And then the flip side of that is how do you envision us retaining our autonomy as different universities, as different departments? Now, to explain where I'm coming from, I teach Spanish language. Okay? So there are other Spanish departments across the PASSHE system, right? So how do we ensure that by creating one system, we're not just making more competition within the system? So if I'm offering a Spanish course and I make it really easy, if I don't adhere to the pedagogical techniques that have been proven to be effective, but that are a lot harder for our students, and therefore they don't really like them, right? If I teach only in Spanish, it's hard for them to keep up, versus if I explain in English, they know what I'm saying, right? But it's, as a pedagogical technique, not as effective. So how do we ensure that we're not just creating more competition and therefore end up basically funneling all of our language teaching to one campus, one department, because that's where the students are choosing to go to?
Yeah, no, it's great. Can I just add to your concern? Which is not about Spanish or academic things, it's about tuition. So the worst potential outcome of a tuition policy is that the rich undercut the poor. And they can't. What stops them from doing that?
Sorry.
What stops them from doing that? I mean, I don't have an answer to that question. If you have an answer to that question, I would love it. But I mean, this, and yours is another example of that, except in terms of an academic standard, right? And so when I address the question, I think of it in terms of accountability. That's why that accountability to each other is more important than the accountability, I should say, is as important as the accountability to the board. Because the actions that are intended to one university can have really significant detrimental impacts on another, and that's a great example of one that frankly I hadn't thought about. So we talked about quick wins and some of the work of these budget investment teams. We're looking at a way, how do universities give visibility to one another? How does university leadership give visibility to each other about this is where we're going, this is how we're going to get there, this is how much it's going to cost, these are the programs that we're going to do in order to do it. So that this conversation can happen. That information, we're struggling really hard, it's complex. If you ask a leader, what information do you need to have a good conversation with your peers, to have these really important conversations, that itself is hard, we're struggling through, we're working our way through that. That's just the platform for the conversation. The conversation itself is absolutely vital. And I think we're going to, we're making this up as we go along, because of the work of the design team and the council of presidents, et cetera. We're going to have to figure out how to have those conversations, in what venues, right? It's not clear to me, and I don't have the point of view, will presidents actually get down to the level of Spanish teaching in the conversation generally about it, right? Or are we looking at will CAOs, or Chief Academic Officer, more likely, at some point of the need to get involved with? But these are the conversations, in my view, when people, and I don't have an answer, but there's a great PhD to be written here, because I have a student, I'd be part-time advising. I'd ask how we got here. There's a variety of reasons, but one of them to me has got to be, we didn't have these conversations when we needed to, right? And so we have to identify these critical issues and then create the vehicles, processes, and mechanisms which enable us to raise them and resolve them, right? And without having necessarily a point of view about what the answer is. And the whole reason for doing this chart was not about accuracy of data, but the 8 to 12 years, the whole reason for doing this was simply to demonstrate, to give a label to our continuing to not address these hard issues. And the label is terminal financial decline. And to say, and to demonstrate that it has a time limit, right? Okay, so now we know if we avoid these hard questions, okay, let's do it purposefully and let's recognize that's what it looks like. I mean, there are other outcomes, but, and it's a mechanism to develop a general willingness to say, okay, that's unacceptable. Conversations are hard, but let's have them. So when I spoke earlier about culture, that's why this culture piece is so important. I'm convinced that we have the talent to figure out how to navigate potentially competing Spanish language offers. It's a technocratic detail. Do we have the culture that enables us to have the conversations we need to have to get to the same comparison? I'm lost. Oh, thank you. And then I'm going over there, I promise.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ergot. I work in library administration as an office assistant. And I don't really have a question so much as a comment I wanted to make that I'm really hoping the redesign team will absorb. And it was brought up by the video that you showed at first. I don't have a college education, and I'm kind of embarrassed and, worried about saying that in a room full of very educated people working in a university that is doing well. But I do work here because I am very passionate about education. I just didn't really get the opportunity to get one, and now I do. But that's besides the point. I'm finding that a lot of people are in my situation. Even my partner, he's not using his degree. He ended up learning everything that he needed to be a web programmer, making quite a bit of money each year online. And I know that we talked briefly about online education, and in the video you showed how much people are learning from YouTube even. And I think that's going to become really, really important for these redesign teams, because I don't think education as it is going to continue, because you see things like Khan Academy, where they're experimenting with doing all of the lecturing online, not the teacher directly lecturing the students, and then having the teachers have more time to work directly with their students. And I'm concerned, so I would like that to be heard.
It's a great comment. Yeah, and where the students are is super interesting. Just so you know, my daughter is today, by midnight tonight Pacific time, I still live in Seattle, has to decide what college to go. And there's a train wreck because about to happen, because any of the colleges, they're all great options. But she's one of those YouTube kids. She cannot sit in a lecture for 50 minutes without being bored out of her skull. And it doesn't matter how good the teacher is. And I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. But this is up close and personal for me. And my daughter's not, she's very unique, so she's not unique in that way. And all students are different. And so in effect, we're asking ourselves to enable a more personalized education that meets our students, and they're so varied where they are in an environment which is pretty highly constrained. It's such an interesting problem. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Christine. I want to go this way.
Hi, my name is Israel Sands, and I'm faculty in the Department of Languages and Cultures too. I'm also in the linguistics program, which is an interdisciplinary program. We're the only linguistics program in the PASSHE system, so I had to say that. Thank you for your visit. So I just wanted to ask a quick question in connection to something that was in that clip that you started your presentation with. It briefly mentioned how we're moving into an economy that's not based on agriculture or industry, but we're moving into an economy that's based on creation. And you briefly touched upon the aspect of innovation. How do you envision our universities becoming actors in innovation? And more specifically, what is the role of research and creative activities in making sure that we stay relevant as creators of knowledge in this new economy and this new cultural environment?
Yeah. Thank you. No, great question. I mean, a couple things on innovation. There's a research literature about network effects in education, actually. Tony Reich's work from Carnegie, which talks about how innovators in education, when they get together from across institutions, they accelerate each other's work because there's an effect that takes place where they, in effect, hold each other accountable in informal ways, and it drives acceleration. So there's a number of things that we know about, and we're going to need innovation in our practice. So the question is, how do we leverage the network? The network is 12,000 very talented faculty and staff. I'm going to come back to research. How do we leverage the network? How do we do innovation in a fail-fast way, in a skunkworks, right? In a university, in an academic setting, I'm not being critical, this is kind of cultural. In an academic setting, we start lots of things, we don't end very much, right? How do what if you go to the innovative firms in anywhere, they do fail fast. They do the equivalent of agile programming, and they just do it in their innovation. So how do you do fail fast? Because the purpose is not to set something up to keep it going forever, but then I have things to do. The purpose is to set something up to learn quickly, to fail fast, to find the things that work, to get them to scale. Right? If you focus on student success, which is our thing, right? You're wanting to find the things that work to students, get evidence base under them, and then scale. To do that, it means you have to decimate things which are not proving to be useful. You have to just try, and when you fail, learn and move on, try and fail. So how do we do that in our practice? How do we do that in a way where we have visibility across the system, where we can bring innovators together, connect them with each other, and connect them with the outside world? So talk about the Dixon Center. I think we have opportunities to leverage that in ways. I think we have opportunities to leverage existing activity, of which there's a lot of great stuff. On the research side, it's so interesting because so much of the stuff we're talking about requires research innovation. A lot of it is at the practical level, right? Research and the interest in driving student success. How much of that are we, engaging? And of course, we have research faculty. The places that are doing some really exciting work, and Arizona State springs to mind, is that they're encouraging their research community to invest their time and personal energies and research talent and their ability to attract research funding in ways that help drive the broader success and innovation agenda, right? So not leveraging our research talent is a mistake in my view. Wouldn't it be cool to think about, I'm giving examples of stuff that people recommend to me, where you run these institutes, low-cost activities, where you're bringing folks together. If I make up something in your field, I'm going to screw it up, so I'm not going to. Or I'll just embarrass myself, which I may be doing. But imagine there's some pretty talented people who I've encountered across our universities who are working with a variety of different kinds of student data to understand student pathways, where there are lost points and where there's accelerators, and to try to figure out which of the lost points you can shore up and which of the accelerators you can double down on, so students can move more quickly and more effectively through our system. It's a data science approach to student success, right? And there's some grant money, and there's a handful of folks. Imagine getting them together on data that we have comprehensively across the system to apply their data science to help us figure out how best to support our students using NSF dollars, which would be very forthcoming for that kind of project. So a couple of things going on here. One of them is learning how to innovate and fail fast. How do we engage with our research faculty? And then how do we build a brand for Pennsylvania State System universities as the most innovative universities with respect to student success? Because by building that brand, we will attract both philanthropic and other forms of dollars. So it's a sustaining kind of thing. You're telling me about that. Does that mean wrap it up, or I have one more question? Oh, that means wrap it up. I have one more. I'm getting mixed signals. I want to demonstrate message discipline. Right? We have one more question. Quick one.
I'm going to ask the one elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think when you came, you stated that you're not coming to the system to close any of the local universities. You just spoke about failing quickly, failing fast. We've had a lot of these institutions that have been failing for a long time. Their enrollments have been declining. Staff is working on other institutions that are succeeding.
Yeah.
So, what's your plan?
So the question was about closing institutions and failing fast. So failing fast, fail fast was a reference to an approach to innovation, not institutional failure. But I appreciate the connection. We have a number of institutions which are in various stages of financial crisis. We just do. And we're going to have to find a path, right? And the politics of, let's just hold on this thread. We're sitting in this room, and it's not just faculty and staff. We're now surrounded by 150 alumni, right? And council of trustees, and you've got the entire local community as employers. They're kind of interested in this thing because we're maybe the number one employer in the region. And we're having a conversation about the future of this institution. That is an emotional conversation, deeply emotional. Now, this is only the legislature can close the university. I'm a legislature. I'm going to move that bill. We have to find a way to transition our failing institutions into a sustainable path that we can all be proud of. That is our burden. We will do that. I have every confidence that we will succeed. But we will also recognize this is incredibly emotional and deeply political. We can't apply too much logic to an illogical situation. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.